And I don't know if you could tell, but that is supposed to be an Evangelion like figure. Well, it's in its box, but I I guess it's not in focus, and the way the light's reflecting on the plastic, you can't really tell. Okay, let's do this. All right, it is the first week of July, which means Spider-Man: Far From Home is releasing. Neon Genesis Evangelion was released, I think, almost 2 weeks ago, and it's also Anime Expo this week. So I kind of want to do this video because, well, why not? Because Evangelion re-released, and it's Anime Expo, and just kind of trying to expand my horizons on my channel. I don't know. I just want to preface this video with, I guess, like a disclaimer in that this video isn't gonna be an analysis video. It's a Neon Genesis Evangelion has been around for almost 25 years, so there are already plenty of theories, explanations, interpretations, and stuff out there. Anything I say is nothing new, and that's not the point. Given how deep and rich the lore and symbolism of Evangelion is, there really isn't a wrong or right way to interpret it. And I want to use series, any series, film, TV shows, comics, whatever, to help me process how I view my life, my depression, anxiety, and the events in my life. Evangelion is probably the first series to have impacted me the way that it did. When the show started taking on a darker tone with its second half, I started seeing myself in the characters more and more, and that terrified me. Because I didn't know what I was feeling. I kept feeling, why do I feel like I relate to these characters, and what is this feeling in this area, in my chest area? And admittedly, I will be projecting my emotions and such into this, so it will probably skew the interpretation in some way. And I know that when I watch it again, which won't be anytime soon, I know my interpretation will be different, and it will be a reflection of what is going on in my life in that time. And I wanted to do this relatively quickly before I get stuck in this weird loop where I keep thinking about it and I'm never going to release or make this. So it's now or never kind of a deal. A bit of background. Evangelion released in 1995 through 1996. I was born in 1993. Yeah, so I was way too young to watch it. But that's not when I watched it. I actually watched it in the summer of 2013. I randomly came across a video or an article that recreated the Evangelion trailer using the Pacific Rim footage. And it was summer, and I was probably looking for things to do between summer classes. And I didn't know what to expect. I think I knew that it was this huge phenomenon. It's an iconic anime, but I didn't look into anything before, and holy shit, I did not know what to expect. I was like, start off, oh, this is interesting. I think I'll watch it. Into, oh, damn, this is getting kind of dark. Into, wait, what? Into, when I finished the series, I was like, I think I'm just gonna go lie down and not do anything for the rest of the day. And Evangelion ended up becoming one of my favorite anime series, and I started exploring the Reboot series and the manga, and and funny enough, it was later that year that I found out I had depression and anxiety, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So as a precursor, since Evangelion was announced for Netflix, I was determined to watch it again. I'm the kind of person who needs to watch things multiple times to understand something. Sometimes reading wikis and articles will only get me so far. And I was curious to see how much I would remember and understand the story, especially the surface stuff like the government conspiracies and the exactly what is the Human Instrumentality Project. Spoiler, I'm still confused. And I was actually kind of scared to do this because I was afraid of any old wounds that would open. But it turned out to not be so bad because it seems like some of those wounds never really closed. That doesn't sound as good when I say it out loud. So a quick side note on the Netflix release. There are plenty of articles online about the differences and grievances regarding the translation and redub of Evangelion. And I kind of checked it out for my own curiosity. And the first time I watched Evangelion in that summer of 2013, I did watch it in the original English dub. This time around, I watched it in the Japanese dub. I was curious, so I switched to the English dub during any notable scenes or dialogue, like Misato screaming, any famous lines like Shinji saying, "I mustn't run away," but I think in this one, it's "I don't run away." Anytime Ray had any any amount of dialogue, and I'm not gonna say anything about the translations, but to me, 90s anime is sort of exaggerated and overplayed. But that's kind of just what the medium calls for. In the same way, a Broadway play or stage play, the actors and actresses will over exaggerate and overact. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm not saying it's good or bad. All I'm saying is everything seems kind of toned down. Shinji sounds less whiny, Rei sounds less timid, Misato sounds more mature. And it seems like the directors and the translators, they wanted to match the overall tone of the series more to be taken more seriously. And admittedly, it does feel updated in that sense. I mean, they did kind of have a similar approach when they did the rebuilds, which had most of the original voice actors and actresses, and it did seem updated in that they kind of toned down the overacting and overplaying. But because it still had some of the characteristics of their voices, it still felt close to the original in that sense. But it could also be the medium as a movie, but I don't know. So what was it like this time around? Well, I kind of forgot how much of it was trying to connect to people. I saw an article recommending animes to watch after Neon Genesis Evangelion relating to connecting with people, and some of them are on my backlog of things to watch, but there was one that I did watch, and it's SSS Gridman, and I would see why it would fit in that list. Oh, and there were a few moments I think I couldn't remember if it was in the rebuild or if it was in the anime. Obviously, everything after the second half of 2.0 on is its own thing, but everything before was pretty close to the original series. Obviously, I wasn't expecting Mari to make an appearance. Like, one of the things I thought happens in the anime and the rebuild series, or one or the other, was I think it's the angel Ramiel, that big geometric diamond thing. When it gets shot or destroyed, it sends out spikes and this, presumably blood substance, and lets out a blood curdling scream. I think that's only in the rebuild series. That wasn't in the anime. So it was like really small things like that. I was not sure, like, is that in the rebuild or is that the anime? This is why this video exists. This is why the video this is why I am making this video, and this is the self-reflection portion. Because like I said, Neon Genesis Evangelion is a reflective piece for me, because it's kind of what I didn't figure out right away that I had depression and anxiety, but it was like the precursor, like the early prototype that made me look at movies and film and any series, anything that I consume, and to analyze it to help me learn and process things about myself, things going on in my life, even though I didn't know it right at that time. And I just want to share these two quick quotes that kind of guided me as I watched this time around. And the first one is actually from Paradise Lost, written by John Milton. It's actually something I read in high school, and it's the mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell a hell of heaven. And this next one is by Hideaki Anno, the show's creator, and I think this is just before he released the Rebuild series, or when they showed the trailer or something. And he says, Eva is a story that repeats. It is a story where the main character witnesses many horrors with his own eyes, but still tries to stand up again. It is a story of will, a story of moving forward, if only just a little. It is a story of fear, where someone who must face indefinite solitude fears reaching out to others, but still wants to try. And I'll hopefully get to explain why those are so relevant in my self-reflection. So the first time I saw it, it freaked me the hell out. And it wasn't because of how graphic it was, like when Unit 2 gets ripped apart or the I'm so fucked up scene. It wasn't the government conspiracies, it was how I kept seeing myself in the characters. You know, they would say they hate themselves. Shinji always wanted to run away. Asuka's descent into madness and self-hatred, trying to be the best. It felt like someone looked into my heart and soul and turned everything I ever felt about myself, my low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence, self-hatred, and turned it into a mega anime. Eventually, I did my research and I found out that Hideaki Anno, the show's creator, was going through depression during its development, and used it as a way to cope with his feelings and express it. And then when I found that out, it made a whole lot more sense. Granted, I didn't put two and two together yet until like at least a year or so later. I'm like, oh my god, it was all right in front of me before, trying to explain to me that I had depression, anxiety. But that's a story for another time. I thought I had a decent grasp on the ending, but after watching it this second time around, there's still a lot that I don't know. At first, I thought it was similar to Gurren Lagann or Kill la Kill. Granted, those two are by the same director, and that it kind of revolves around the philosophy of free will. And as a side note, I watched Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill long after I watched Neon Genesis Evangelion. We could all become this singular being without pain, but also without happiness. Or we could become individual beings that experience happiness, but also sadness, anger, and etc. And that's where the beauty of life is. You can't have happiness without sadness, whatever. You know, the human spirit, or in Gurren Lagann's, the spiral power. In Kill la Kill, I don't think it's necessarily the thread of life. I just finished watching Abba Ranger, so the Dino Guts. And like I mentioned earlier, the John Milton quote, you can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven. But it was the human connection aspect kind of threw me off. And here's what I kind of picked up this time around. So as I've come to understand it, the AT field not only gives humans their shape, but is also the physical barrier that keeps people from connecting. The Human Instrumentality Project, while ignoring the government's and Gendo Ikari's personal goals, will completely remove everyone's AT field, reducing them into LCL liquid and combining to become this singular being, or primordial soup that I thought from before. Shinji allows for the option to allow anyone to come back on their own free will. And then that's where I thought the free will aspect came from, especially when paired in conjunction with the original ending for episode 25 and 26, where he decides that happiness is a possibility for him and he wants to pursue that, even though he still hates himself and it's going to take a lot of work. But no. He decided to come back because he didn't want to connect with people anymore. He wanted the AT field. He is trying to hurt himself more because he views himself as that weak, which in a way kind of better explains his attempt to choke Asuka. And when I made that connection that he did it to hurt himself more, it freaked me out even more, because in my initial interpretation, if I could experience that kind of existence without pain, and granted also no happiness, I'd probably do it. But in this recent revelation, I do the same thing. There are some things I do um, to hurt myself more, and explains a lot of things I did in my life. My current view on life is not great. Sure, I could take the easy way out. And sometimes I feel like I keep myself alive, not because I think that there is this possibility for happiness, but because it hurts more to be alive. It's difficult and painful, and I hate myself so much. I would rather keep myself alive and suffer through life than to just be dead and get it over with. Yeah, it's not great. There are a few articles I'll probably put down in the link that I kind of read after to help me kind of figure out what I want to say, put into words. And so we'll see. And it, I don't always feel that way, but when I do, it's hard. It's heavy. It's that side wins more often than the other one. But it's because I have this kind of mindset. I look for any show, media, story that can inspire me. I mean, the way I kind of see it is like Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill. They kind of give you the sword and remind you to stand up and fight. Whereas Evangelion kind of gives you the sword and says it's up to you whether you decide to fight or if you take the easy way out. It's like it was like the early precursor to like the shonen anime and like free will and determination and all that stuff. I mean, look, I think I'm okay. It's just, man, sometimes those thoughts, they win sometimes. Like, I know happiness is a possibility. I know it's not impossible. Like, I listen to enough podcasts about people who, managed to change their situation and come from nothing. And, and I kind of did it before. I was in a depressed state before, and, with therapy, I got myself out of it. But, man, sometimes I feel like I can't win. But, I still have hope every now and then. So, while I made it sound like one thought or interpretation negated the other, they kind of go hand in hand, in which it's up to me which side I see it as. I think. I don't know. These thoughts are still kind of fresh. I mean, let's see, it released June 21st. It is July 2nd. So it's just a little over a week. I just finished it June 30th. So these thoughts are still fresh. I'm still processing everything and sleeping on everything. But on a lighter but still hopeful note, I think I forgot or blocked out the human connection aspect of the anime because I think I'm okay on that end. I'm able to make connections with other people, especially my close friends and family. If we're talking romantic relationships, that's a whole different story. I could stand to get out more, but I don't necessarily feel lonely. I mean, the kind of loneliness I feel is like the whole world's against me and that nobody knows what I'm going through. But I know in reality that's not the case, so eventually I can snap myself out of it. But yeah, I think the human connection aspect, I think that's, in a way, that's one wound that healed okay. It's everything else I have to worry about. And I hope that, given time, I can go deeper into this and better figure out what I want to say. Because not only is Evangelion confusing, it's and deep, but sometimes I get lost in my own thoughts. I'm trying to make sense of which one uh, makes sense, or I'm trying to figure out how to put it into words and try to organize it better. So this is just a, uh, I guess you can call it impression, or like a revisit, and then uh, I'll try to redo this again when my thoughts have settled and kind of solidified. But I think I'm sticking to that. Yeah, the whole free will thing. Oof, it gets scary. It gets kind of dark. Yeah, and I don't really have a lot of time to re-edit this, so whatever is in here, I can't just refilm. Whatever's in here is in here. But I hope it kind of serves as a guide for my channel. Like, I want, the purpose of my channel isn't going to be reviews. It's not going to be, um, you know, analyses. They're self-reflections. They're how I interpret that medium or whatever to me, in the hopes that other people might be able to use that same method for themselves, because it's kind of something that helps me. Some people have music, some people have poetry or books. This is the one that I found that works for me. So here's hoping.